I love to cook at home, and having good kitchenware makes all the difference in the world. Not only does good equipment make prep and cooking easier, but it makes it more enjoyable. This is why both Joel and I are huge fans of Made in Cookware. Their wide range of cookware, from pots and pans to knives and flatware and even glassware, are designed to be professional quality for right in your home. Joel is a big fan of their knife sets, and I just upgraded all of our stock pots and saucepans to Made in stainless steel ones. This goes along with my many other stainless steel, carbon steel pans that I have. I have over a dozen pieces, and I absolutely swear by Made In's products. Next, I'm getting a set of beer glasses. Yes, beer glasses for the whole podcast crew. Take your home cooking to the next level by upgrading your cookware by going to unitedwedrink.com/madein. That's MADEIN. Find out why pros like Grant Achatz, Sean Brock, Nancy Silverton, and Eric Repair trust Made In. Go to unitedwedrink.com/madein. That's MADEIN, and upgrade your kitchen and cooking today. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, coworkers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour, more like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to United We Drink right here on whatever app you are listening to. I always found it funny when Mike, who is not with us today, he is on assignment, but I always found it funny how he would list off all the places it's available when whoever's listening has already found us. But that's neither here nor there. With me, as always, is my friend, my brewing mentor, my boss, Mr. Kevin Abbott. Kevin, how are you?
I'm really good, Joel. I'm so happy to be here. I have a lot of things there, brewing mentor, embarrassed, don't say that. Boss, also embarrassed, don't say that. I'm just happy to be your friend.
See, most people would say the opposite. They would say, yeah, I'm your boss, I'm your mentor, don't call me your friend.
That's why I'm a good boss and mentor.
Yeah. I guess I kind of botched the intro because what I did want to say is welcome back to the one podcast guaranteed not to be canceled by Neil Young.
I think that's a fair guarantee. Not because we don't say offensive things and not because Neil Young would like us, but because he doesn't know who we are and doesn't give a fuck.
Exactly. As do most of the other audience. What are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking one of my last simulated summer IPAs by a little brewery called Barrel Amongst Brewing. By the way, this is a Barrel Amongst takeover. This will be an entire show dedicated to tasting notes from Barrel Amongst beers, and you guys are just going to have to like it. Now that Mike's gone, we can do this.
So
all plugs all the time.
I've still got probably half of my case left, so I gotta start dipping into that again. But tonight, for me, it's just ice water. As always, I do have a little shot of Malort off to the side here in case something in this episode will suddenly make me call for it. But yeah, just ice water for me. I've actually been doing the Peloton boxing program since the weekend, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really sticking with it. So no alcohol for me at the moment.
Well, that's pretty cool. I did not know you were doing that. I do want to just call back to the Malort. It is true that you always, you're talking about, obviously, on the podcast, always having a bottle of Malort, but you also have one on your person at all times. Is that not correct?
That's correct. I have a flask. I won't say where I keep it. Just know that it is strapped to some appendage throughout the day.
It is a Batman style utility belt. That's what I was told. Is that not true?
It is, and I can disperse it in aerosol form, sort of like in Batman Begins, in case I need to take out any perpetrators.
That is why every now and then when I'm up in my office at the brewery, I start to feel ill. So thank you for finding the cause of my disease. I now can cancel that doctor's appointment.
I don't know what they're made of, but do you remember stink bombs? Did you ever have those in like high school?
Absolutely. Well, actually, you know what? I want to say yes, but it might have just been popular culture made me believe that I had, because they're in every single Simpsons episode and every cartoon, there's stink bombs. I want to say yes, but I'm not sure.
Is that like the Berenstain Bears thing?
Yes, stink bombs prove the existence of multiple realities. I think that's what we're going to get down to. Now we're in Joe Rogan territory, just so you know.
Breakout. I mean, Malort is chemically one molecule different than ivermectin.
You heard it here first, folks. And and please, that leads us to our first guest of the day, Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz, welcome to United We Drink.
I thought we were having Alex Jones on. I guess I got my calendar mixed up.
He's next week.
But anyway, the reason I brought up the stink bombs, just looking at this little mini bottle of Malort, is that the color, the viscosity, everything feels nearly identical to what those little stink bombs looked like back in the day.
I would say, looking at Malort, the viscosity, the color, just how light refracts off of it, it just feels wrong. That's the only word I can think of is wrong. Maybe vile. Those are the words that come up for me.
And that's why I love it so much.
Liquid pain.
So as we mentioned, Mike is on assignment, so Kevin and I are I mean, we've got some stuff to talk about, but I mean, I think for the most part, we're kind of winging it here. I am going to try to be very conscious of my knows and things like that, because when I listen back to these episodes, I'm frankly embarrassed at how I speak. Whether it's like tone and inflection or just shoehorning in words that don't need to be there. I'm like, Jesus, like, I wish Mike would just like ignore the tapping on the desk and just delete all the other shit that comes out of my mouth.
Well, I'm sure he could work on that. I think that would be a goal for us. I think the important thing for the people listening should know is that because it's just you and I, Joel, it's just going to be 30 straight minutes of you talking and then 30 straight minutes of me trying to tell you that you're wrong, last calls, and then we're never going to speak again. I think that's the plan that we kind of etched out.
No, I like it. I don't know why that wasn't the format all along.
We put on three. That could be the format change for United We Drink. We have three separate podcasts. The Mike podcast, where he talks and gives a diatribe or a speech or a lecture, followed by you, followed by me. And then we all come back to yell at each other at the very end. I think this is a format that works. It works on, PTI or whatever those shows they have on ESPN back when I used to watch sports.
Speaking of sports, real quick, I was going to ask if you had a pick in the Super Bowl this weekend that will have already passed by the time this episode airs.
I'm going to take the Yankees. I think that they're going to hit the most field goals and have all the home runs and touchdown points.
I agree. I'm putting all my money on them as well.
I was going to say that the Decatur Staleys is actually what I was going to look for, but it wasn't in my brain quickly enough, so I went, cheap with the Yankees. I do know football. The Portsmouth Spartans. I know football from the turn of the last century.
Yeah, I didn't think you were a football guy, but I thought you at least might have noticed Matt Stafford, who's on the LA Rams, used to be the guy for Detroit for a long time.
Oh yeah, listen. This is a well-known thing in the history of Detroit sports, especially with the Lions. Go somewhere else, and it's just a magical land of unicorns and lovely gumdrops. When you play for the Lions, they're doomed to a life of misery. One playoff win, I believe, still in my lifetime for the Detroit Lions, and I believe 1991. They beat the Dallas Cowboys in the first round of the playoffs. I think I'm correct there, and they got smoked by the Redskins in the next round. But yeah, the Detroit Lions are one of the most miserable sports franchises in all of mankind, but at least we have other miserable sports franchises in Detroit to balance them out. I think that's important too.
And you know what's ironic about this is I normally tune out when the sports talk starts happening, because that happened a lot between Mike and Phil. Or should I say Bill Parmigiano, and now I'm the one bringing it up. I mean, this to me is like discussing the weather. Like, I brought it up, yet I want to kill myself.
That's the story of my life, my friend. I think you're just taking on Mike's role. I think that's an important part of you. I see you're carrying yourself different. You're trying to be more responsible, and you're trying to really, be the rudder of the ship. You have not said though. One of the things that we talked about beforehand about the kind of influx of listens we've gotten recently, and wanted to thank all of our new listeners for all the great comments and stuff. I mean, do you have statistics there for us, Joel? What are we up? Like, 25, 30, 155%?
I don't have the numbers. Mike's the one that usually runs all the analytics on that kind of stuff, but just feedback. Getting a lot of feedback online. Lots of people responding very passionately about, the episode of does craft matter anymore? What the hell was the one before it? I don't know why I can't think of the topic.
We did one. We did one that I was on for a good 12 to 15 seconds. That was all about ratings and things of that nature, and Untapped, which I'm sure we got some good feedback on, because it's a kind of a contentious and interesting topic.
Yeah, people got real fired up about that. It feels like we've touched a nerve, and people reaching out, DMs, emails. By the way, thank you guys for supporting the podcast with our affiliates / sponsors / partners, whatever they each prefer to be called. I know everyone's been getting a nice discount on the Liquid Death. That's been doing really well. And I know if Mike were here, he would probably be drinking one of those, or two even. He was all excited about the lime. He was all fired up about that, which I but and made in cookware. I mean, Mike and I are huge fanboys of the stuff, and I've never been happier cooking with these knives. So really good stuff, and thank you all for supporting and using the promo codes, the links, and everything. And don't forget, we've also got merch. I don't know where the hell it is. I'm sure it's on our website, unitedwedrink.com. Summer's coming up. You got to get one of those jacuzzi mead shirts. There's shower beer, but have you tried jacuzzi mead?
Okay. I don't even know what the hell that is, but I'm going to take your word for it. I do want to say that it is true, is it not, that all this new fanfare and new listens pretty much all coincide almost identically of when I joined the podcast, right? That is accurate.
For as much as the contrarian that I am, I have no evidence to the contrary here.
The fact that you didn't just beat me down for trying to toot my own horn, which probably is bullshit, by the way, is shocking to me. This speaks to your desire to be the calming influence over this podcast, which puts me in a really tough position, because that means I have to be as negative as you and I combined, and that's not going to be good for my psyche. It's going to take me about a week and a half to come down from this. So let me have one more drink of whiskey, because I have a whiskey too, because of course, why, when in Rome. And then let's get into some kind of topic. Let's go. This is like potpourri from Jeopardy. Let's just throw something out there and figure out what side we're on.
Have they found a host for Jeopardy yet, by the way?
My brother and sister-in-law are really, really into Jeopardy, and they were really, really into the woman that recently went on like 134 game winning streak. But I believe the guy who has the longest winning streak and Mayim Bialik are still sharing hosting duties in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
That's my understanding, and like everything else I say on this podcast, expect it to be inaccurate. I cannot stress that enough. I tried to push the idea that Monster was owned by Coca-Cola. It turns out Coca-Cola owns like 15% of it. I took it as a win. Technically, probably not true. But if I had to worry about everything I say being technically true, I could never talk.
Well, look at it like the Goose Island acquisition. I mean, everyone was shocked in 2011 when they were fully bought out by AB InBev, but they had already had a stake.
Oh,
so, you know, maybe you're right, just not right now.
That is... Can you get that on a bumper sticker for me? Because that will perfectly encapsulate everything I do going forward. Maybe I'm not right now, but possibly in the future.
I mean, not to reference another DC property on this podcast, especially when we're such Marvel fans, but maybe you perceive time as Dr. Manhattan and the Watchmen. Like, not only are you here right now, but you're in the past looking at a photograph of Monster going, Coke owns them, 100%.
I experience all times at once. And by the way, don't do that to Watchmen. Watchmen is not a DC property in like the fact that it's in the DC cinematic universe, or in the DC universe, even though they tried to pull it in with Doomsday Clock, which was kind of unfortunate. Not to go off on a diatribe, but you know, Watchmen is one of the greatest graphic novels ever produced.
I don't know if I ever told you, but a former coworker from my cubicle days and a brief roommate of mine once borrowed my Watchmen graphic novel that I got around the time the movie came out, because I was honestly unfamiliar with the whole thing until the movie was coming out. Borrowed my Watchmen, never gave it back, and then one day I went to his house to buy some like used kiddie furniture for one of my kids, and he hands me a bag and goes, "Here you go." And it feels like a book, but it's too thick to be Watchmen. It's too bulky. And I'm like, "What's this?" And he goes, "It's a gift." Like, "Okay, what is it?" He's like, "It's a gift. It changed my life." And I'm like, "It's in a fucking Target bag." And I'm like, "Okay, thanks." And I get in my car, start heading home, open the bag, and I did not get my copy of Watchmen back. What I got was the Bible. I thought you'd appreciate that story.
I thought you were going to say, that's when I got L. Ron Hubbard's Dianetics. And I've been a Scientologist ever since. And basically what you just said was pretty much the same thing.
Similar plot.
Yeah, similar plot. Less aliens flying fighter jets. But other than that, very similar books.
So, Mike went on a bit of a tangent early in the last episode about self-distribution. And I read something online in something about local brewers and brewery owners going to Tallahassee, you know, basically part of the Florida Brewers Guild, to lobby for whatever they're working on this session or however you want to define the time period. But and you know, we used to work for a brewery owner who at one time was the president of the Florida Brewers Guild. So, you know, at that time we were a little bit more tuned into what was going on. And, you know, we also had some important shit to pass, like, ridiculous stuff like I think we were the second to last state before Alabama to legalize 64-ounce growlers. I could
Such a silly thing. Yeah.
I could be thinking of home brewing, or maybe it's both. I don't know, but and just where my career has taken me lately, I haven't really had the need to follow along with the guild as much, and what they're doing as far as brewing law in the state. So, Mike seemed pretty passionate about it. I didn't think they were working on self-distribution because I had seen a list of things that they were working on, but it didn't include that. But the way Mike was ranting, he sounded like, this was number one on their agenda, and he thought there was no chance in hell of it passing. I know you had some thoughts on it you wanted to share.
Well, first of all, to clarify, if I can, and this may not be accurate, I think Mike was talking about not necessarily the legislation that is being proposed, but just the groundswell and what brewers in Florida are calling for about the self-distribution aspect of things. I don't think it was a serious proposal. As he said, never going to happen. That was his opinion on that. So I think he was just kind of speaking to that and the fact that every single time one of these conversations gets brought up, every thread on the Florida Brewers Guild website, on the forum, whatever, gets bombarded with this. And I can speak to experience of going to guild meetings up to 7-8 years ago and that's all they ever want to talk about was self-distribution, self-distribution, self-distribution. So it definitely has been front of the mind for a long time. I look at the idea of self-distribution, and this is a thing where I want to pull this away from just being about Florida, right? Because we get listeners all over the country, and there are states that have limited self-distribution that are out there, that are doing these kind of things. And I would love to hear from brewers from the small nano segment to the middle tier breweries like a Barrel of Monks, a couple thousand barrels a year and up about what their experiences with self-distribution are. But I look at this and play devil's advocate to look at this from my brewery standpoint, Joel, from our brewery standpoint. Self-distribution would do nothing for us. Absolutely nothing. There's no way that Barrel of Monks, as a brewery that does 2,000 barrels a year, would ever want to deal with trying to sell one slim of Wizard White Ale to a bar or restaurant 4 miles down the street and work about the billing and the setting up of an account and working on terms. And there's no benefit that we would see in that situation that I can wrap my head around. The distribution model, as flawed as it can be, gives us such a bigger reach into more and more places, accounts, places that we would never get our chance to go into. And the volume of beer that I possibly could do in self-distribution would be so minuscule. And the amount of extra work and manpower that would be needed to fulfill those orders would eat into every extra dollar that I would get on those margins in the first place. Now, I'm speaking specifically as my brewery, making 2,100 barrels in 2021 and looking to grow that into 23 to 24 next year. I'm not trying to speak for a nano brewery. I'm not trying to speak to a brewery doing less or more or anywhere, because I don't know what their perspective is and how they run their numbers. But I guess I wonder, for any size brewery, have people done the math to realize this will actually be a game changer for their business, or does it just seem like it would be? Hence and therefore, it's something that they work passionately for. But if they actually got it, it would be untenable or wouldn't actually move the needle, wouldn't actually make them money. So that's kind of the question that I have.
Well, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I think, if I could put myself in the shoes of some brewery owners, I think it comes down to more of just a freedom aspect. Like, just having the ability to do your own thing, and because like at my first brewery where you were as well, it was a bit stressful, and look, there are some caveats to it. We had an owner who at times could have a contentious relationship with the distributor, and that obviously affected how much they wanted to take, what they wanted to take, when they wanted to take it, how things were done, how things operated. I mean, there was a lot to that. And, trying to, crank out stuff and get it on the truck every week can be stressful. And, because it's like, hey, if we're not ready and we miss this pickup, like they're not coming back Wednesday instead of Tuesday. We don't have that flexibility. And this was when breweries were just starting to pop up. And I think that the distributors, who are like bud houses and all this other stuff, probably, had more power. And everyone talks about, oh, it's supposed to be this mutually beneficial relationship. And I kind of joke often that it's not, and that it's a lot more in their favor because they're essentially a middleman who, obviously they do lots of things that small breweries can't do. Yeah, and I think when you had mentioned about, the cost of this self-distribution and everything, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, think about what it would take just to, you need someone out there selling the shit, right? Whereas your distributor has an entire army of sales reps. Now, granted, they're all pushing, whatever the special, sale is this week or whatever it is. And you may not be on that list, but and you're up against all the other breweries that they're selling as well, but at the same time, they at least have the manpower. Then you've got to get trucks, and you've got to get insurance and licensed drivers and storage. It's a whole thing. And I think you're right that most people don't consider it. I just think they view it as more of like this freedom aspect where it's like, well, if I could self-distribute, I wouldn't have to put up with all this other bullshit. You know what I mean?
I do, and I think it's one of those deals where, and I'm not familiar enough. I haven't done the research out into areas that do either limited self-distribution or self-distribution across the board to see who's really benefiting from this and what are the models that really, really work. I think that especially in a business like ours, where it's a lot of people that are passionate about beer that get into it that don't have, let's be honest, a lot of business savvy, right? That's a lot of the people in this industry. Then you have the other side, which are people that have a lot of business savvy that don't know much about beer. And putting those two things together is kind of tough. And I think until you really start breaking down your margins to understand where your money is going, how much does it actually cost to produce that keg, produce that case? I worked for breweries and I asked questions and said, well, how much does it actually cost us to make this? I don't know. Well, then why are we charging this much for it? Is this what everybody else charges? Well, everybody else, some of those breweries are making 30,000 barrels a year, so they have to have economies of scale. So are we losing money on every keg we sell? And there wasn't an answer.
Right.
So I think when you look at that and you look at what is kind of this freedom aspect that you're talking about, I blame no one for wanting this. And I can think of a lot of ways that self-distribution could work, right? If you are a brewery, a brew pub in a downtown area with 20 bars around you, I could see you going, well, self-distribution could be those bars could you literally come across the street, purchase a slim from me at a margin that really, really makes me money. They walk it back across the street and, they cut me a check or whatever it is. There are lots of ways this could work for a lot of small breweries. But the second you get out of that really tight geographic area, the second that you take that to a scale that's really going to be meaningful, and I'm talking about this from a brewery that made 2,000 barrels. And by the way, in our industry, there's so many industry people that are listening to this. 2,000 barrels is nothing. We're still a small fish. But even at that level, an account that does a slim a month, that's not an account that we can put that much time into. right? You need accounts that are generating a slim a week. You need accounts that are generating multiple half barrels. You need larger accounts to focus on. And when you're now trying to sell in with a salesman and then deliver with a truck and then follow up with people on the logistical side of it to get payment, and that drain on your funds is almost invisible, but it's there. So that's what I'm wondering. That's why I would love to know how this is working out for other people and how they're being successful with it. Because I'm sure there's avenues, but I think that from my experience talking with other brewers, especially the brewers in Florida, they think that limited self-distribution at a minimum will be a game changer that will just make them become the most successful breweries in the world. And I'm just wondering if that's the case.
Well, I think with a lot of things, it's going to be trial and error. I mean, you'll see, if this were to come to fruition, you would have, just like anything else, people who try and fail. And there very well may be some who try and succeed, because it's certainly legal in many other parts of the country. I'm glad that you brought up this, and I don't know if you were doing this on purpose, but the downtown brewery with bars around, because that's exactly what I was doing at West Palm. And when I went there, I don't know, 5 years ago now, I was leaving my first brewery, and not only was I attracted to, the creative control and some of the other perks, but there was also no distribution. It was a brew pub. Everything was, from the tank to your glass, and that is it. It's not going outside the building under any circumstance whatsoever. And I was, having a lot of quality control issues at the first brewery. I was very excited about the notion of being able to control the beer from start to finish. If anything goes sideways, I can take it off. I don't have to worry about visiting accounts, cleaning lines, the whole thing. So then in 2019, 2 years after I came on, we had won a nice little award for something, and my boss was all excited about it and thought, hey, what if we distributed this beer? And I was like, well, it's a quick turnaround. We can make it relatively fast, and it's cheap relatively, and I think it could work. But I really pushed for and even this was his thinking as well, which was miraculous to me, because usually people think that, like, I'm going to start distributing, I'm going to get on shelves, I'm going to be in every fucking store. Like, there's just limitless shelf space for me. There's limitless draft handles for me. I'll get out in the market and I'll be everywhere. And that's just not the case. I mean, I always tell people that the industry is, for a long time, outpaced the growth of restaurants and bars and places that can actually carry their beer. I mean, Total
100%.
Wine is not adding another aisle for beer. They're just maxed out. It's probably quadruple the size of what it was when I first got into beer, well over a decade ago. So
they're shrinking, actually, Joel. They're shrinking that. They're shrinking those areas, and beers that and love that used to be staples aren't on those shelves anymore.
Yeah.
Not even coming into the state now.
Yeah, and basically where I was going with that was, it was on me to find a distributor and figure something out and make it happen. And it seemed like a manageable task. And at the time, we had already had plenty of experience with just about every distributor in the area, because until I was able to get all 20 taps filled out with my own beer, we had a lot of guest drafts. And the draft system was ready long before the brew house. So it was football season in the fall. The owner was very hyped up about, showing off the place, hosting his friends, having people over for football and beer, but none of my beer was available yet. So he signed contracts with damn near every distributor in town to order from as many places as possible. And for a while, I was actually kind of curating a nice little guest draft list in addition to what I had on. But it really gave me a glimpse into how a lot of these different distributors operate. Because, I was buying from Brown, I was buying from Cavalier, I was buying from Gold Coast, but I was also buying from like really tiny guys who had, nano breweries that my friends worked at. And it's like, well, I want to support my friends and, carry their beers that I think are good. So I've got to order from these guys. And the experiences varied so wildly to me and reminded me of why I wanted to get away from dealing with distribution, because you had like some guys from the bigger distributors outright like bamboozling me, like, oh, do you want this keg? And I'd be like, yeah, I think I've heard of that beer, it sounds good. And then it shows up and it's like a $350 slim of some specialty shit that I was completely wrong about. And I actually watched two reps laugh to each other in front of me, joking about how I bought that keg. They were like, you sold him that? And they were like, yeah. But then there were smaller distributors who shit on their own breweries and didn't support the thing they were selling, or just had really poor communication. And when it came time for me to contact these people, because now I need one of them to help me here, it was a disaster. I mean, I'm a small brew pub downtown who has not distributed. Our production is in the, low to mid hundreds a year. And, I don't even have bright tanks. Like, it's not like I can crank it out if I need to. So, I've got to stick with the plan and keep it very limited, very local, and basically use the distribution as kind of a tool for just getting people in the immediate area to come to the tap room. So now it's like I'm too small for the big guys, but I'm too I'm too small for the big guys, but I'm also like, I don't want to deal with most of the small distributors just because of the experience I've had with them and some of the unprofessionalism I've seen or whatever it is. I'm like, how can I have these people representing me when I see what they do when they come here and try to sell me beer? And I don't want to get lumped in with all that. So, I reached out to a few. I had known a few people at these different places. One of them just no-showed. One of them never contacted me again. Then we finally started having serious talks because a good friend and former coworker was, one of the upper guys at this distributor, and we started having serious talks, and we were ready to do the contract. I mean, there was a contract written up, and then it came down to negotiations and just the whole back and forth. And now my boss, who's an attorney by trade, is having this debate with the guy with the contract, saying why do I have to commit to your distributorship for a lifetime? Show me the law that says I'm stuck with you for life. But they just kind of insisted on it. And my boss didn't really like the way this guy talked to him, and he just kind of tanked the whole fucking thing. And this was really the only small distributor I wanted to deal with. Then we ended up, having long talks with a distributor who, the guy from the state who comes to do my audits and everything, told me don't go with these guys. They're not paid up on their fees. I don't even know if their license is legit right now. And fortunately, these guys just folded overnight and, really dodged a bullet with that one. But we were close. And, I know every case is different. Like I said earlier, I don't want to speak for anybody else. But in my particular case, having the ability to self-distribute, even on a really small scale, I could have walked a slim keg 2 blocks to Clematis Street. You know what I mean? So, it wouldn't have been as involved as needing trucks and insurance and accountants and accounts receivable and all that shit. But I think there are certain cases where kind of small fledgling breweries might slightly benefit.
And that was kind of my point. I don't think there's a doubt that there are situations where that could work. I don't think that's an argument that I'm making. I think that your experience with distribution is so many brewers' experience with distribution. It is oftentimes a contentious relationship. It is fighting for mind share, fighting for shelf space. But there is something that the distributors bring to a table when you want to be a brewery producing more than a couple hundred barrels a year. It's a necessity to get out there and get an infrastructure that can get your beer onto shelves. When you don't want to be everywhere, when you don't want to be in grocery stores, when you just want to do some draft business where your margins are high, then I do think this kind of thing can work. What I'm worried about is this idea that it's a panacea, that all we need is self-distribution and we're going to be good. I look at my business so much different from the days when I was a brewer, running a brew house and the head brewer and doing these things. Looking at this from a distribution standpoint, director of operations, my title, I'm looking at every aspect of our business and I'm trying to find ways where we can make a little bit of money here and a little bit of money there. And my focus, if we had one thing, I'm just throwing this out there as an example. Mike, when he was living in Philadelphia, I went up to visit him and we were walking through a farmer's market. And at this farmer's market, there was a brewery. Actually, it might have been like a kombucha place, but same basic concept, that was selling their wares directly to the consumer at a farmer's market. Hundreds of people are passing by, and they had the opportunity to sell hundreds of glasses, right? I mean, whatever's in a half-barrel keg, you can bring multiple, you can bring package, whatever, to those people directly on a random Saturday or random Sunday, or maybe every Saturday or Sunday. I don't know how this one was set up. The possibility for real money, for real tangible benefit and growth within your business, if you could do that in Florida, in our state, could really change the dynamics of any small brewery, even a brewery like ours, because we're looking as a way to grow our taproom sales on a Friday by 10%. 15%. That's only hundreds of dollars. That's not thousands, that's hundreds. And with the margins we make on a half-barrel keg of our Wizard White Ale or our Single One Havana or IPA, one half-barrel selling directly to a consumer at a farmer's market could be a game changer. That could be 5 figures a year added to the bottom line, that pays for an employee, that pays for a new tank, that pays for something else. That's not as sexy as self-distribution, but I bet if we had the ability to do something like that, it may be a bigger game changer for more breweries to be able to do those kind of things. Then you can argue, well, the massive breweries will come in and they'll do their thing and they'll take those over and then they'll gobble all that up. I don't know the answer to that, but there are places to put your focus that might be better for all of us and might actually be better for the people that would even benefit the most from self-distribution, of ways to capitalize on our products. And I think we missed the forest through the trees kind of thing because of this kind of devotion to this idea that self-distribution is the way to go. And I just want to say, I'm sitting in a spot of privilege that my beer is in a lot of places, and I'm sitting in a spot of privilege of being open for 7 years, having a footprint, being able to build out a brewery with a nice reserve in the bank, right? We were able to have the funds to do that. I completely get it, and not everybody's in that situation. And I will not fight against the idea of self-distribution, but I just want to say that from a financial aspect of being a person who's watched a brewery grow from several hundred barrels a year to several thousand, at any step along the way, I think there are better places to put your resources.
Well, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's definitely bigger fish to fry. I just don't know if everyone else sees it that way. Personally, I would love to see more of an emphasis on quality and shelf stability and things like that. Unfortunately, we're just in this fast-paced industry right now where, the latest release, you got to drink cold and keep fresh and drink right away. And but by the time it goes out the door, it's already forgotten. And, it seems like everyone's kind of got that "what have you done for me lately" mentality, where it's like it's just all about the next big thing. So I'm hoping at some point, I don't know if I don't know if I want to use the pendulum analogy, like hopefully it'll swing back the other way, but maybe just stabilize a little. And we've seen in recent weeks a lot of brewery acquisitions in the sense of like not macro buying small breweries, but like small breweries buying small breweries or medium-sized breweries. So let me ask you a hypothetical, because I've made no secret that I kind of feel like we're in the wild, wild west of beer at times, and I've seen homebrew for sale. I've seen rampant IP theft. Lots of different things that, as I'm sure I've ranted about on occasion. But we're in this kind of post-truth era where everyone's got their own facts. There's not much belief in institutions. What do you think the possibility is that some places just go, you know what? Fuck you. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to start selling my beer directly. And, maybe it's an attention grab to put some spotlight on it and make it a heavily discussed subject, because like we've seen many, many times, like, for example, breweries who steal intellectual property, get a cease and desist, and then splash that C&D all over social media and everywhere else saying, look, big money and big corporations are picking on the little guy, and they pull the whole David and Goliath routine. I feel like they could pull that out of their playbook when it comes to this and just go, fuck you, I'm just going to do what I want.
Isn't that already happening, Joel? We know of places of home brewers that are selling their beer to bars. I heard about this first 5 years ago. Two very, very popular craft beer bars in South Florida. Places that are at the forefront of every great craft beer that comes out, every craft beer that comes out, selling somebody's home brew, which is completely illegal. I think it's happening now. Will there be a massive shift in that, a growth in that to make a point? Quite possibly. I think there is. It's interesting that we talk about this because you and Mike are so on the train of being, maybe Mike more than you, maybe you more than Mike, kind of abhorrent to see people stealing IP for T-shirts and cans and things of that nature. I do not come down on the side of it's completely okay, and if you get a cease and desist from Wu-Tang Clan, that somehow they're the bad guy. No, you're the bad guy. And by the way, I'm the bad guy. I've used tons of pop culture references on T-shirts, and I've done it to get away with it because I thought it would be fun. I thought it would be clever. I'd sell 30 T-shirts, and it would be a cool thing to connect with my public. It's a way for me to say, oh, you like that thing? I like that thing too. It's a way to connect with your customers, knowing full and well that I was not in the right in that situation. So if I got that cease and desist, I would go, thank you very much. I will never do that again. I am sorry. Slap my wrist. I do think there is a self-entitlement in our industry because we got a lot of rebels in our industry. We got a lot of people that you can't tell me what to do. And that's just nonsense. People create intellectual property. They own that. There's an entire system set up for it. So, yeah, I think that there's too many people in our industry that kind of flout those laws in a way that is a little bit sad to me. And I think when it comes to the legal aspects of it, this is the kind of conversation we should bring on to the next podcast with Mike, because Mike is a stickler for the rules. I'll get text messages saying, Kevin, you know that on your can you used a word that you cannot use to get cola approval on TTB. And I'll go, well, thanks, Mike, for looking at that, but I passed it through cola. They approved it. And he goes, well, they shouldn't have. I said, well, they did. I can do it now, so maybe I got away with it. Maybe they've changed their policy. And I appreciate Mike for that. So having his perspective on something like this would be really, really valuable. But it is the wild, wild west. It is us versus them. It is David versus Goliath. And every craft brewery sets himself up as that. At the end of the day, I think most craft brewers really want to be Goliath. They just want the benefits of being David for a while. And they want to grow into a point where they can sell their brewery for $300 million. And I think that's kind of the sad part about it, maybe a slightly disingenuous part about it, is that you want the cover of being small, independent, privately owned until you get to a point where someone steals your IP. Yeah. Or until someone uses your name. Right? Because if a brewery in Oregon uses the name that you put on your can, you're going to call them up and go, hey, what are you doing? I might want to distribute in Oregon. And then what are we talking about?
Right. And I won't get too much into the IP thing because I've gone over it ad nauseum and I'm totally over it. But I think, and maybe I'll shoehorn a little Marvel Cinematic Universe in here because we've had too much DC for one episode. But I kind of look at it like the breweries are, or maybe craft beer as a whole is like Doctor Strange. And he's got all these different, like, when he's fighting you, he's got like all these different dimensions he can put you in, right? So you're like in the mirror dimension. Or he, blasts your fucking, not your soul, but what is the term he uses? Like your spirit.
I can't remember.
All right, well,
the important thing, Joel, it's not what the people understand, is what I understand. I get you. So please keep on with this overextended metaphor.
So basically where I was going with that is I feel like craft beer has all these different weapons to be, and they're almost like crutches. Like, like I said before, like we're the little guy and big business is picking on us. Like, think of it like this. A brewery can do like a Simpsons beer. And Fox is, well, I mean blatant, Simpsons appropriation. And, Fox will be a real stickler for that. Now, they let's say they put out the initial image, right? Here's the can that's dropping this Saturday. It's fucking Bart Simpson, whatever. Or Homer and his donuts pastry stout. And everyone fucking goes wild. Like, yes, I love The Simpsons. I grew up on The Simpsons. I love beer. I love The Simpsons. You have combined these two things that I love so much. When can I come get it? How much can I buy? How much is it? Then, a day later, they'll get the C&D posted on Instagram and everyone will go, fuck The Simpsons, fuck Fox, it's bullshit. They're picking on you. So that's one crutch that craft beer uses, that whole David versus Goliath thing. I think another thing they use is like, we're family owned. And this is kind of the similar thing, but it's like this: we're small, we're local, we're independent. We only have so much. There's only so much we can do. Like, help. Like, it's just this like perpetual kind of faux victimhood that they utilize to like always frame themselves in the right light. Like we're local and independent. Big beer is evil and, coming to destroy us all. So, I don't know where I was going with that. I had something.
Well, let me jump in there, Joel. This is the thing. There is no evil. There isn't any evil here. It's not a black or white issue. It's complex. And we can look at big beer, we can look at big businesses and say we don't like their practices, we don't care for their products, we don't think they should be able to tell us what cartoon characters we can put on our cans. It doesn't change the laws. It doesn't change what they are legally allowed to do to protect their intellectual property. It doesn't change what Budweiser is going to do to protect their market share. We have an uphill battle in the craft community. We do. We always have. And there's enough places to place your focus and your blame on them for what they might be trying to do to suppress your business. The thing that I worry the most about, and the thing that I always want to ask those questions, and by the way, I'm going back to my original idea about self-distribution. I hope we get 5 direct messages from breweries that self-distribute and go, no, Kevin, you are way off base. This has been a boon for us. We are happy. We went from 400 barrels to 900. We're exactly where we need to be. We employ 14 people. We do this, we do that, we do this, and that's all I hope that's the case. I'm just saying you have to ask the question of whether or not this is actually the road we want to go down, whether or not we're really being kept from this gold mine, or whether or not it's fool's gold, whether or not we have to put our resources in other places. So there's no doubt that being a small local business is important to communities, and that we should, and the people that are doing that and employing people locally should be held up and should be someone that we look up to and want to aspire to and grow those businesses. But it's not all or nothing. It's not all evil and all good. There are craft breweries. There are small, independently owned craft breweries around this entire country that are owned by complete assholes, that are people that we would not want to share a beer with, that are making terrible beer. That also exists. Not every person, when they put a shingle on their door that says craft beer here, is the best person in the world and should deserve all of our praise and approval. We all know this. It seems odd that you have to say it, but it's the truth. So we've got to... I was talking to my partner Keith earlier today about a completely different topic, nothing to do with craft beer. This was like politics with a big P, right? And we were talking about a very big political issue, and he said, well, you know what? I think that's a complex issue. And I said, whoa. I just want to make sure you're on record. This issue that no one's been able to agree about for the past several hundred years, and that wars have been fought over, and that political parties have been founded over, is a complex issue. I just want to make sure I understand that you're putting your peg down there, because that's a brave stance. And I was saying that as a joke, and I think he understood that. But I think it's important for us to understand that it's a complex kind of thing, without being too sanctimonious.
I'm glad you gave that some, framing as far as timeline, because for all I know, I thought you were talking about like the green M&M or something like that. I came into this episode thinking that you and I would be very opposed, but I kind of feel like we're mostly in agreement here. I mean, you always, say things in a much more tactful, well thought out, rational way, whereas I'm quick to be like, fuck that.
Well, but the thing is that we're rational people. We enjoy each other's company, so it leads us to understand that we're probably going to come down on similar sides of things. And also, I don't think I have to say this, or I shouldn't have to say this, but everyone listening to this, if you didn't agree with what I said, or maybe I'm missing some nuances there, I don't fucking know. Right? I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. I don't know how to grow our business without self-distribution. I don't know the best way to change the distributor situation with our breweries. I don't know how it works in Oregon versus Massachusetts versus Puerto Rico versus Texas versus Florida. I don't know. right? We're here giving our opinions because we're passionate about this. We're trying to spark interest and get people to think about things in a different way. That's all, I think, an important thing. But at the end of the day, we don't know the best way. And if we can do that, I think responsibly by asking the questions, not in a kind of disingenuous way to kind of spark controversy, I think it's a valuable thing for us to be able to do. And then if new information comes in, then I speak for myself, and I will also speak for Joel, just for the sake of being dramatic. When new information comes in, we will change our minds. Because that's what people do. So change our minds if you think that self-distribution is the end-all, be-all. And let's go from there.
I think that's a great point to close on here. Just those 3 little words, I don't know, are a lot more powerful than people know. And reminds me of something I read earlier today. I don't know who to attribute this quote to, but it said, I'd rather have questions that have no answers than answers that can't be questioned. So, and this episode flew by, man. I think we covered a lot of ground here. I'm sure Mike has been yelling at the audio, like, God damn it, like, I was going to say this, but hey, he'll be back next episode, and we can certainly... I've been wanting to do like little recaps at the beginning. I tried a little bit earlier just to mention how we've been getting the response that we have, and we want to hear what Mike thinks about this. In addition to what he ranted on last episode, you can always go back, listen to that one if you haven't already. Kevin, do you have a last call?
My last call is this, and this is not fair because this isn't really a last call, but I'm going to hang my head on it anyway. My last call is Mike gets the first 10 minutes of our next podcast to respond to anything he wants during this podcast so that he can say anything. Then I at least get 5 minutes to respond to what he has to say. Joel, you're on your own. But that is my pledge of what I think Mike should get, and then me, because I'm selfish. Let's go back to that. I was trying to be very magnanimous earlier on, but at the end of the day, that's my purpose on this podcast, is to be a selfish prick. So then I get my say.
I feel like we already get 10 minutes of him with the intro, the ad reads, the disclaimer, all of which end with "now enjoy the show." So you'll hear "now enjoy the show" no less than 6 times every episode. And it's like, I can't enjoy the show because you keep telling me to enjoy the show.
I feel like this is the roast of Mike Yurevich on this show, and I'm just not comfortable with this, Joel. Mike is he's a god among men. He's one of the best of us, and hallelujah.
And him being a stickler for rules, I know he won't be happy that we're interacting throughout last call, but you're not here, Mike, so fuck you.
What's your last call, Joel?
So I want to make a recommendation, and this is something that I have been obsessed with for a couple of weeks now. Like many people, I have a Netflix queue that is insanely long, and I always end up spending way too much time scrolling through it, only to end up switching to another app and watching Avengers for the 90th time. But I found something on Netflix totally by accident, and I'm in love with it. It's called Midnight Diner. I believe the first season is in 2009. It's a Japanese television program. The episodes are very short. I want to say no more than 30 minutes. I could be wrong. I don't know how to fully describe this show. I don't know if it's a comedy. I don't know if it's a drama. I don't know what it is. But I know that I love it, and I'm obsessed with it. And there's nothing better than like popping a little gummy and letting it settle in and then watching this show. It's like part drama / comedy meets cooking show. The basic premise is there's in Tokyo, there's sort of this night scene where, everybody who's been at work all day, they get out at night, and, that's when everything comes alive. And there's a guy who is only referred to as the master. and he is the owner and proprietor and chef of this very tiny diner. I mean, this place can't be any bigger than my bedroom. It seats maybe 9 people in a kind of U shape around where the master is cooking, and he has a policy that he only has a couple of things on his menu. However, he will make anything you request as long as he has the ingredients for it, or you bring him the ingredients. I mean, there's an episode where a guy just walks in with a loaf of bread and he's like, "Egg sandwich, please," and the master makes it. It is every review that I have watched or listened to about this keeps using the same word, charming or zen. And I definitely agree. There is just something about this that I'm hooked. Every episode deals with different regulars who come into the diner and their backstory or what's going on with them. There's Yakuza guys and, famous singers and food critics and just people from every possible walk of life. It's like I said, I know I'm going long here, but I don't know how to fully describe this. All I know is that I love it so much. I fall asleep to it every single night, and I'm only maybe halfway through the second season after a couple of weeks, so I'm kind of glad that I'm falling asleep watching it, and then I have to go back and watch it again, because it's truly the most unique thing I've seen in a very long time.
Sounds like something I need to check out.
And this is, I know in earlier episodes I said something along the lines of like, I'm done recommending shit because people will go, "Oh, where do I go in Florida?" And I'll go to these breweries, go to these restaurants. And then they fucking go somewhere completely different. And it's like, I've only lived here 30 years. Don't listen to me. But this is one of those things that I kind of wait till everyone's asleep to watch. I just feel like no one else in this house will get it but me.
Joel, just so you know, you are a person that is prone to make sweeping statements. "I'm off Twitter. I'm not making recommendations anymore." And then, we know you come back slowly like a puppy dog. We entice you back into it. The last thing I'm going to say, I know we need to go because we're going long here, but during this entire episode, I want everybody to understand this, and this is a really important thing to go out on. Every minute or so, Joel has gone in and pressed a button on his keyboard the entire time. I think, Joel, you are playing a 1980s point-and-click adventure game on your computer while we are talking. That's my prediction. Am I correct?
No, I'm playing today's Wordle.
I could go into a diatribe on that alone. That was actually going to be my last call. I wrote it down somewhere and lost the note. I'll talk about Wordle next time.
I love Wordle. I actually play it on the toilet every morning before I do anything. So,
Joel, I think you should bring us out. Is that a thing? Is that a phrase? I don't know.
It is now.
Take us out.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you to everybody who's listening. Mike, we miss you. We'll see you next time. Thank you all for working with our affiliates / sponsors / partners. Please keep enjoying the Liquid Death, the Made in Cookware. I'm probably forgetting a couple here. Don't forget to like, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff if you're enjoying what you're hearing. Thank you for listening. I know there's more that Mike usually puts in the end here, but I'm drawing a blank at the moment. But
I think Mike always says, "Buy Barrel of Monk's beer
right
in as high of quantities as you possibly can, and disperse it to all of your friends and loved ones as gifts." I think that's one of the things he always says, right?
Right, and you're barely on social media, so as far as the plugs go, you can find Kevin at some point at Barrel of Monks on Instagram. I'm sure it's facebook.com/Barrel of Monks. Barrel of Monks Brewing in Boca Raton, Florida, also available in several states outside of Florida, including Kansas City, which we may have some news about on a future show as it becomes more relevant. and Odd Breed Wild Ales as well, kind of our sister brewery, if you will. Matt Manthe doing some amazing things down in Pompano Beach. So please continue to enjoy that stuff, or try it out if you haven't already. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting us. We will be back next episode with Mike, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.
Cheers. They're all liars. Don't listen to a single word that they're saying. They have me trapped somewhere. I don't know where it's at. Just trust me. Trust me. Don't trust them.